what is it that made Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, Ama Salafis, Ama Al-Athari, what made them separate, and what was the groups that came? What did they do? What did they change? What did they tamper with? Where did the disagreement initially start from? Where did it come from? As we know, the religion was pure and it was clean at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Messenger was alive. If there was any disputes and any arguments, they would bring it back to the Prophet, and he would answer it, and that was it. The one who didn't accept what the Prophet told him to do would be considered a hypocrite. And the Sahabas would take their matters to the Prophet. As Allah told them in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنْ تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ إِن كُنتُمْ تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا. Whenever disputes and argumentations and conflicts occurred, they took it back to the Messenger ﷺ. And he would tell them, this is right, this is wrong. And a lot did this used to happen. But when the Messenger ﷺ died, and he passed away, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu took over. And when Abu Bakr took over, some of the people, they refused to pay the zakat that they used to pay to the Prophet ﷺ. Some of the tribes, they refused to pay the zakat. And they said, we're not going to pay it. We don't want to pay it. We used to pay it to the Prophet. Now that the Prophet is dead, we don't have to pay it to anybody. Umar radiallahu anhu now is the Muslim leader. He said, you guys have to pay this zakat. This is an obligation in the religion. Allah mentions it in the Quran. The Prophet mentioned it in the hadiths. But you guys have to pay. And Umar radiallahu anhu said, if you guys do not give me this zakat money, that is wajib for you guys to give, because he wants to distribute it to the poor people and the ones in need. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, I will fight with you guys. The Muslim leader, I'm going to forcefully take that wealth from you. Umar radiallahu anhu came to Abu Bakr and he said to him, why are you going to fight with them? Did Allah not say, did the Prophet not then say in the hadith that the person who says La ilaha illallah, that their blood is sacred? These are Muslims. How are you going to take their wealth? Umar radiallahu anhu, when he said that statement, Abu Bakr said to him, if they refuse to pay the zakat, I will fight with them based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which the Prophet said, Umirtu an uqatil an-nas, I was commanded to fight with the people until they what? Say La ilaha illallah, hatta yashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and they pray the salah and they give the zakat. If they do that, their blood becomes sacred from me, and their accountability is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this was a conflict between Abu Bakr and Umar. How did they resolve it? Straight away the hadith. As soon as the hadith was quoted, what happened? Umar didn't say anything after that. He said, I hear and I obey. Even Umar radiallahu anhu suggested, and he said to Abu Bakr, Usama ibn Zayd is young in age, and the army that he has to fight is a big army, and he's a young man, he's less than 20 years of age. He's carrying the largest fleet of Muslims, army. Change him with somebody else. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, La, I'm going to change someone the Prophet appointed? No, I'm not going to do that. And this is what showed, what is it? Following the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's how the Sahabas were. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, if any issue arose, he would look for an ayah in the Quran, in what position to take. If he couldn't find it, he would look for a hadith. And if he couldn't find it, he would call the most knowledgeable of the companions, and he would say, has any one of you heard a matter, has anyone heard of evidence for this issue? And one of them might say, I have. And he would say, what did you hear? And he said, I heard this from the Prophet's mouth, alayhi salatu wasalam. and that Abu Bakr would act upon that. Umar did the same. When the plague hit Sham, and the people in Sham, the plague hit, Umar radiallahu anhu wanted to know what's the ruling in this issue. He didn't have the ruling, he didn't have the hadith for it. But Abdurahman ibn Auf mentioned what? He said, I heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, if a plague hits a land, don't go into it, and the people in there should not come out, so it doesn't spread. Even at the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, a woman gave birth at the age, she gave birth 6 months into her marriage. She gave birth to a child, and her husband accused her of adultery. He said that you cheated. The matter was taken to Uthman radiallahu anhu. Uthman didn't know what to do. Ali ibn Abi Talib, he said, there's nothing wrong with this woman. She's fine. What she did is, there's nothing wrong with it. You can give birth in 6 months. And it's in the Quran. Where? Uthman is Hafiz. Memorized the Quran. Where? Then he recited the ayah, وَصَيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ حَمَلَتُ أُمُّهُ كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ 30 شهرا. The breastfeeding and the pregnancy, Allah mentioned how many? 30. Yani 30 months. 30 شهرا. 30 months is the pregnancy and the what? Breastfeeding. That's what the verse said. Another verse mentioned that the breastfeeding is for how long? 2 years. وَالْوَالِدَاتِ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ. 2 years is how many months? So how much are you left with? 6. So the 6 is a what? Is a pregnancy. Ali ibn Abi Talib told him this. He said, there it is, it's in the Quran. Uthman didn't see this. Powerful istinbat of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, which indicated that the Sahabas, every step they wanted to take, every movement, any judgment, they looked at the Quran. Nothing else. Even at the late stages of the companions, deviated groups came, started to say evil things. The first group that came out was the Khawarij. The Khawarij came. They made the bloods of the Muslims halal. They were taking people out of the fold of Islam, and they were saying that they're kuffar and their blood is halal, and they were killing innocent people. So the Sahabas had to deal with them. So they really came out at the time with power, and some movement they came at the time of Ali ibn Abi Talib. They actually left the Muslims and they stayed in a place outside of Kufa, where Ali ibn Abi Talib was. Ali was in what? Kufa. After Mas'alat al-Tahkim, when Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu and Muawiyah, they came to a resolution, and the matter was solved. They were not happy with that, the Khawarij. So they cut off from Ali ibn Abi Talib, and they used to cause fitna in the masjid. They used to look at Ali ibn Abi Talib and they would scream and they would say, Inil hukmu illa lillah. And they make takfir of who? Ali ibn Abi Talib. They said he's a kafir. Muawiyah, kafir. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, kafir. They made takfir of the Sahabas. So they were deviated groups. The Sahabas dealt with them. And one of the Sahabas who went and dealt with them was what? Abdullah ibn Abbas. Abdullah ibn Abbas, he dressed up one day, and Ali ibn Abi Talib said, go to them and talk to them. Speak to these people. What do they want? Ali ibn Abbas went. And he met them. And sat with them and said, what is your issue? And they said, our issue is a few matters. First of all, they criticized Ibn Abbas' appearance, the beauty and the way he was dressed. He had good clothes on. And they, on the other hand, they were aesthetic. They left the dunya. They were like, their clothing was simple. They had signs and marks of sujood on their foreheads. People who left the dunya, but deviation entered their hearts, right? Evil and deviation entered their hearts. They're getting closer to Allah. They are worshipping Allah. To hate Ali ibn Abi Talib and Muawiyah radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, may Allah be pleased with both of them. And the noble companions of the Messenger. That the shaitan has beautified it to them that much. Are we all together, brothers? So Abdullah ibn Abbas went to them and he said, what's the issue? What's the problem? And then they gave their reasons, and I don't want to go through the debate that took place between them, because I want to go through a historical issue, inshallah ta'ala. But Ibn Abbas debunked their arguments, and he took a large number of them from that misguidance with his knowledge, and they went with him. Are we all together, brothers? And then after that, the issue of the Rafidah came. What did they do? They went extreme. On what? On the family of the Prophet ﷺ, specifically. Not all of them. They're not fanatic to Abdullah ibn Abbas and the other family of the Messenger. They picked and they chose who they wanted and selected. So they were dealt with by Ali ibn Abi Talib himself. Ali ibn Abi Talib in the Masjid of Kufa, he stood up and he said, Wallahi, I would lash the lashing of a person who falsely accuses a woman of zina. That lashing, I will lash them, the one who puts me before Abu Bakr and Umar. Are we all together? So he was saying that for what reason? He was dealing with a group of people who were going extreme. Are we all together? Actually, Ali ibn Abi Talib, a group of people, they took him to a level of uluhiyah. Ilah, what did he do to them? He burned them. Ali ibn Abi Talib got a fire. What did the poet say? وَلَمَّا رَأَيْتُ الْأَمْرَ أَمْرًا مُنْكَرًا أَجَجْتُ نَارِي وَدَعُوتُ قَنْبَرًا. Qambar was the man who was lighting the fire. Ali called for it. He took them all and he burned them in the fire. And guess what they said after that? Allah is ilah now. Because only Allah burns with the fire. He is ilah, Ali, they said. Abdullah ibn Abbas was told that Ali did that. And he said, if I was Ali, I would not have done that. Because I heard the Prophet ﷺ, he say, you should not burn nobody with the fire. Only Allah can. Are we all together? You can't burn people with fire. But Ali tried to deal with these people when they came with these ideologies. Even they came to him and they said to him, Ali has secret knowledge that no one else has. So they came to Ali, a group of people, they said, Ali, we have a question to ask you. Is there something you know and nobody else knows? Is there something that is secret that only you, the Prophet, told and nobody else? And he said, no. There's nothing that the Prophet told me, alayhi salatu wasalam, that's private to me, that no one else knows. No, not at all. Except that he mentioned something, and he mentioned something that's written on this paper for me. I said, what is that? And even that he dictated it to the people, he told them. So this idea that they were saying, so the Sahabas, wherever innovation, wherever deviation occurred, what did they do? They dealt with it. They responded, they debunked it, and they didn't let it exist. Even at the time of Abdullah ibn Umar ibn Khattab, a group of people came and they rejected the qadar, the predestiny. They rejected it. So two noble men, Yahya ibn Ya'mar and Humayd ibn Abdurahman al-Himyari, both of them, they came to what? Abdullah ibn Umar. Either it was Hajj or Umrah, one of the two. They came to Abdullah ibn Umar and they told him, they said to him that there is a group of people that have come out from our side, Yani Basra. A man by the name of Ma'bad al-Juhani. And a group of people believe his ideology, which is, they believe there's no qadar. Abdullah ibn Umar, radiyallahu anhu, when he was told this, what did he say to them? They reject the qadar? He said, when you see those people, فَأَخْبِرْهُمْ, tell them, أَنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنْهُمْ, I am free from them. وَأَنَّهُمْ بُرَآءٌ مِّنِّي, and that they are free from me, we have nothing to do with each other. And then he carried on saying, Wallahi law anfaqa ahadihim, if one of them gives out in charity, mithla Uhud dhahaba, the mountain of Uhud. You guys have seen the mountain of Uhud, right? How big it is. If they give the mountain of Uhud in gold, ما قبل الله منهم, Allah will not accept it from them حتى يؤمنوا بالقدر, until they believe in the qadar. Because it's from the 6 articles of faith. It's the arkanul iman as-sittah. If you don't have it, you're not a Muslim, right? So if they don't come with the qadar, they don't believe in it, Allah won't accept any good from them. And then he didn't just say that, because the Sahabas they bring the evidence for everything. He said, I heard my father Umar ibn al-Khattab saying, بينما نحن جلوس عند رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ذات يوم اطلع علينا رجل شديد بياض الثياب شديد سواد الشعر لا يرى عليه أثر السفر ولا يعرفه منا أحد حتى جلس إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فأسند ركبتيه إلى ركبتيه ووضع كفيه على فخذيه وقال يا محمد أخبرني عن الإسلام. And then the Prophet told him about Islam, the 5 pillars of Islam. قال صدقت فعجبنا له يسأله ويصدقه قال فأخبرني عن الإيمان. And then he told him the 6 articles of Iman. أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وتؤمن بالقدر. That's what he wants from the hadith. And then after that he said قال فأخبرني عن الإحسان قال أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه قال فأخبرني عن الساعة قال بل مسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل قال فأخبرني عن أماراتها قال أن تلد الأمة ربتها وأن ترى الحفاة العراة العالة رعاء الشاء يتطاولون في البنيان. ثم انطلق فلبثت مليا ثم قال يا عمر أتدري من السائل قلت الله ورسوله أعلم قال فإنه جبريل أتاكم عليكم دينكم. So this hadith is what he used, Abdullah ibn Umar, to discuss, to show that if you don't believe in the 6 articles of faith, if you do not believe in the qadar, Allah will not accept it from you. So he said, go to Basra and tell these people I have nothing to do with them. So here what you can see is every time a group of people come up and they try to play with the religion, the Sahabas were alive, the people would come to the companions and the companions would clarify the issue. Are we all together? But these groups were coming out at the time of the Prophet. The time of the Sahabas. Are we all together? Especially at the ending of the time of the companions. Are we all together? Then after them, I mentioned the great jurists, the great imams of Medina. إذا قيل من في العلم 7 أبحر روايتهم ليست عن العلم خارجة فقل هم عبيد الله عروة قاسم سعيد أبي بكر سليمان خارجة. The 7 jurists of Medina, big imams, came out and then they what? They defended the religion, they taught and they educated. The people came to them and these 7 great imams passed away. They died. And then after them came what? The small tabi'een, like Muhammad ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, and his tabaqah, his level. And who took from Muhammad ibn Shihab al-Zuhri? Al-Imam Malik rahimahullah, Imam Dar al-Hijrah, is in Medina. Some of the Sahabas, they went to Kufa. Some of the Sahabas, they left Medina when the Prophet passed away. And they started to live in what? Iraq. From them is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he had students that took from him, like Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, and from there came Al-A'mash, Sulaiman ibn Mihran, and from them came Hamad ibn Sulaiman, and from Hamad ibn Sulaiman came who? Abu Hanifa. Hamad ibn Sulaiman, he slightly went against the teachings of his teachers. Slightly. In one issue, and that issue went to who? Abu Hanifa. Look at, even if you slightly move a little bit, it creeps into someone. And that's why Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, one particular issue, Mas'alatul Iman, he didn't go in accordance to. He's a great imam. And Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, a great imam, a giant. But because that road that changed a little bit, something creeped into him that he was corrected on at his time. Rahimahullahu rahmatan wasi'ah. May Allah bestow His never-ending mercy on Al-Imam Abu Hanifa. And in Medina was who? Al-Imam Malik. Okay? Who took directly from who? Nafi'. Who took from who? Ibn Umar. And Ibn Umar took from who? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Golden chain. Iraqi, he said, إمساكنا عن حكمنا على سند بأنه أصح مطلقا وقد خاض به قوم فقيل مالك عن نافع بما رواه عنه ناسك. Meaning, Malik, Nafi' and Ibn Umar. Are we all together, brothers? Kufa, some Abu Hanifa came. Abu Hanifa's students came. Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, Abu Ya'qub, Zufar. A'imma came from there. Malik, same with him. Students came from him. From them is Abdullah ibn Masalat al-Qa'nabi, Ibn Qasim, Ibn Wahbin, Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. A'imma, Shafi'i. Came from was the students of who? Malik. Shafi'i went, he studied with Malik, went to Iraq, studied with the students of Abi Hanifa. From them was who? Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani and Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf. And then that's why Shafi'i, what he saw was Ahlul Hadith in Medina, Malik and Al-Awza'i and Abdullah ibn Mubarak and Hamad ibn Zayd and Hamad ibn Salaman, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Sufyan ibn Thawri, those were Ahlul Hadith. And Ahlul Ra'i was who? Abu Hanifa and those who came from him. So what Shafi'i did was, he studied with these ones, and he studied with these ones. And when he studied, he thought, I should bring something to take from both of them, to make a science where everybody can benefit from. And then he authored his great kitab, Al-Risala, Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, on the request of his teacher, Abdurahman ibn Mahdi. Shafi'i wrote a science till today that we study called Usul al-Fiqh. That's where Usul al-Fiqh came from. This school and this madrasa, Shafi'i wrote Al-Risala. The poet, he said, وأول من ألفوا في الكتب محمد بن شافع المطلب وغيره كان له سريقة مثل الذي للعرب من خليقة. Shafi'i was the first person to write it. Are we all together? And then Shafi'i, after studying in Iraq, he taught Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Hanbal. And then Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Hanbal, he taught him. He taught Abu Thawr. He taught Hassan ibn Salih Za'farani. He taught many imams in Iraq. And then he moved and left Iraq, Shafi'i. And then where did he go? He went to Egypt. Shafi'i rahimahullah, he went to Egypt. And then when he went to Egypt, he met his great students, Al-Rabi' ibn Sulaiman al-Muradi, Ismail ibn Yahya al-Muzani, Abu Ya'qub al-Buwayti, these great imams. This time, these great imams I just mentioned, and as Shafi'i is in Egypt teaching, an issue arises. And I want you guys to understand here. An issue arises. Shafi'i is still alive, Malik is gone, Abu Hanifa is gone. An issue arises that's been boiling for a long, long time. It was kind of dead because the Muslim ruler before that dealt with it, which was the issue of Al-Ja'd ibn Dirham. Al-Ja'd ibn Dirham was an evil man who went and studied Greek works and started to open doubts amongst the Muslims. The ruler of his time executed him. And so his issue and his problems came to an end. But there's one person who took from him. And that was none other than Al-Jahm ibn Safwan. Jahm ibn Safwan took from him. And Jahm ibn Safwan started to spread his ideologies. His ideologies, it crept into another group called the Mu'tazila. The Jahmiyyah's ideology crept into the what? The Mu'tazila. And that's why Al-Wasim ibn Ata and Amr ibn Ubayd, those two were the leaders of the Mu'tazila. Their ideology got passed on to who? Ahmad ibn Du'adin, Bishr al-Marisi. And Bishr al-Marisi and Ahmad ibn Du'adna were the worst enemies of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. They put him in prison. They were the cause of him to go into prison. He was lashed. He was beaten. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. He was in prison for so long. He wasn't allowed to teach anybody the religion. Ahmad suffered because of it. Great scholars were killed because of that issue. The issue of Khalq al-Quran, like Abu Ya'qub al-Buwayti in Egypt, was executed. Muhammad ibn Nuh, the friend of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, was also executed and was killed. This issue of the Quran being created. And who created this problem? The Jahmiyyah, who took from Ja'd ibn Dirham. And so Ahmad took a very tough stance. The ruler asked him, do you believe the Quran is created? Yes or no? He said, I do not believe the Quran is created. You guys can do what you want to me. And they took Ahmed rahimahullah and they beat him and they lashed him and they physically harmed him. And Ahmed would still stick to his word that the Quran is not created, that the Quran is the speech of Allah. And he would reference many verses of the Quran. وَإِنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ اسْتَجَارَكَ فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنَهُ. He says, look, Allah is saying that the Quran is my speech. He said, look, in the Quran, Allah separated between creating and the Quran. أَلَا لَهُ الْخَلْقُ, creating. وَالْأَمْرُ, and the Quran is the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, how can they both be the same? Ahmed took the Quran. And listen to this. Ahmed ibn Abi Du'ad and Imam Ahmed were brought together in a room by the ruler. Ahmed just kept looking at the ruler. He ignored Ahmed ibn Du'ad. Ahmed ibn Du'ad at that time is Qadi al-Qudat. Qadi al-Qudat means he is the Ministry of Justice. He has a position. And he's whispering in the ear of the ruler. He's telling him, this is the right belief. You should believe this. So Ahmed is brought to the courtroom. Ahmed looks at the ruler. And the ruler says to him, I want you to debate this man, Ahmed ibn Du'ad. Ahmed says, I don't know this man to be from the people of knowledge. Where did he get knowledge from? I don't know. But he said, if you tell me as the ruler of the Muslims that I have to, I will. And Ahmed rahimahullah, what's amazing about him was that even though the ruler was physically beating him, you know what Ahmed ibn Hanbal said? He said, if the ruler, he doesn't have to, he one day was walking with his chains. Ahmed ibn Hanbal, he was walking with what? His chains. He said that the ruler doesn't have to put me in chains. He doesn't have to. If he tells me to stay in my cell, I will stay. The doors can be open. I won't leave. I'll follow his command. I don't need to be in chains. I'm not going to run away. But I do not believe the Quran is created. This is a matter of the religion I cannot compromise on. You with me, brothers? So Ahmed ibn Hanbal, when they told him debate Ahmed ibn Du'adin, Ahmed ibn Hanbal said, I do not want to engage in your nonsense and your philosophy. I don't want to engage in that. I have Quran and I have Sunnah and I have what the early 3 generation has said. That's it. Salafi. I'm not going to argue on anything else. If you have a verse from the Quran, give it to me, I will use that verse. I will listen to you. If you have a hadith, give it to me. Ahmed's memorized 1 million hadith from memory. He's a walking encyclopedia. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, Shafi'i said about him, Shafi'i, the great Imam, Imam Shafi'i, said to Ahmad ibn Hanbal, if I ever quote a hadith, and it's not authentic or not, tell me, okay? And they recognize the value of what? Of what? And what did Ahmad ibn Hanbal say? He said, we had so much hadiths at our disposal. We had so many hadiths that we memorized. But until we sat with Shafi'i, we didn't know how to extract the rulings from it. Ahmed saying that. Shafi'i told us how to extract the rulings from the hadiths on the Quran. And Shafi'i is saying, Ahmed told us what is authentic and what is not. And the whole religion today, that's what it stands on, those two. Which is what? Authentic evidence and how you extract the ruling from it. Is there anything else? That's the whole religion. Make sure you give me evidence which is authentic and extract the ruling from it correctly. It's like somebody saying, you're allowed to celebrate the Prophet's birthday. And you say, what's your evidence? And he says, my evidence is, أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ. The verse means, why do you not look at the way Allah created the camels? So I will say to you, the ayah is sahih. It meets the first criteria. It is the word of Allah. I agree with you. But what does that have to do with what we're talking about? The whole science of usul al-fiqh, what does it teach you? How to extract the ruling to the issue that you're talking about. So Shafi'i was a master in that. And Ahmad ibn Hanbal was a master in what? The authenticity of the hadith. And no doubt, Ahmad was also a master in extracting rulings from the Quran and Sunnah. Are we all together? I'm mentioning this history fast and quick so you guys understand how this religion reached us, pure and clean. Are we all together, brothers? Ahmad rahimahullah, went through that torture. And he went through that trial and tribulation only because of a group of people who went against the Prophet's path but gained power. They gained power and they used the sword of the leader. Are we all together? And Ahmed stood his grounds, and some of the scholars of his time, they said to him, why do you not just take the easiest route out? We know in the Quran Allah says, إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. If you are put under duress and somebody coerces you into something, you can always take the easiest way out. Just say it. If they, like Ammar ibn Yasir. Ammar ibn Yasir was a companion where Abu Jahl was torturing him and his mother and his father, right? And they said, insult the Prophet, we'll let you go. And Ammar ibn Yasir, a noble companion, he insulted the Prophet, so they let him go. And he cried, he came to the Prophet, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I did something bad. The Prophet said, what did you do? He said, Ya Rasulullah, just so I can save myself, I insulted you. The Prophet said, if they torture you again and they tell you to insult me, insult me. وَإِنْ عَادُوا فَعُدْ. If they go do it to you again, do it. In Islam, if somebody forces you to do something, you can find a way out by doing what they tell you to do, then do it. Of course, you're not allowed to kill another person if they say to you, kill this person, or we're going to kill you. You're not allowed to. Or if they say to you, go commit zina with somebody, or else we're going to kill you, you're not allowed to do that. But other than that, you should be able to get away with it. But Ahmed said, no, I'm not going to do that. They said, why? The Sahabi Ammar ibn Yasir did it. The Prophet let him. He said, there's a difference. Allahu Akbar. There is a difference. And the two situations are not similar. Why? He said, the people trust my words and what I am saying. If I today take that stance, they're going to think that's my stance and they're going to all believe it. So I have to hold my grounds and not let them believe that this is permissible to say that the Quran is created. Because it's true, when Ahmed came out of prison, everybody was holding their pen and paper. They were like, is it created or not? They wanted to document it. So when he saw all of that, he said, no, I can't, there's no way out for me. Ahmed rahimahullah passed away. Then Imam al-Bukhari came. Look at Kitab Sahih al-Bukhari. In there are chapters where Imam Bukhari is refuting these deviated groups. Bukhari. There's a chapter in there. Al-Raddu al-Jahmiyah. Refutation on the Jahmiyah. Bukhari wrote a whole kitab. After he wrote his Sahih, he wrote a separate kitab where he called it Khalqu Af'al Ibad, where he spent the first half of the book refuting the Mu'tazila and the Jahmiyah. Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah is to keep this religion clean, brothers and sisters. I want to conclude by saying something. That after all of that, from that time to Ahmed ibn Hanbal's time, there came a group who were in the background. Nobody really took time out to refute them because the biggest problem wasn't them. The biggest problem was who? The Mu'tazila and the Jahmiyah. They were the biggest problems. Are you with me, brothers? So the ulama Ahlul Sunnah were dealing with the Mu'tazila, and they were dealing also with the Jahmiyah and the other groups and the Khawarij and all of that. But there was a group lurking in the back who were also refuting the Mu'tazila and the Jahmiyah. Are we all together, brothers? Which were the Ash'ariyah. That's why you're not going to easily find the Sha'ira refuted at the time of what? The four Imams. Because they came after. Abil Hasan al-Ash'ari came after all of that. Are we all together, brothers? So when they came, not only did they come, but they came with influence, and they came with, they seeped into the Muslim community fast and quickly. And what helped them the most was people who held good positions in Islam embraced this ideology. Are we all together, brothers? Honorable people to be honest, embraced some of the teachings of the Ash'ariyah, and some of them became even part of them. Are we all together? And the first time that they became the most dominant belief was at the time of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Salahuddin al-Ayyub, He played a big role in allowing it to spread, especially in Egypt. Egypt, as you all know, the Rafida took over, the Ismailiyya took over, and Salahuddin al-Ayyub, what he did was, he empowered, he took them out, and he put, who did he put in place? The Asha'ira. And Salahuddin took a very history praiseworthy individual for what he did for the Muslims. Are we all together? He wasn't a scholar, he wasn't a student of knowledge, he was a commander, but he took an honorable position for Islam, which he's praiseworthy for. But there's nobody who's free from mistakes. Are we all together? Another man who was an honorable man, honorable, is Nuruddin al-Zanki rahimahullah, who also embraced their belief. Are we all together? Because the war wasn't with them at the beginning, it was with who? Huh? It was with the Mu'tazila and the Jahmiyyah, all of them. Until one man came, and he took it upon himself to clear everything, to bring everything back to its nisab. Things were going out of order. Single-handedly. There were attempts before that. But one man single-handedly took on the Asha'ira and made it his life mission to get every mistake that they did and correct it. And that's none other than who? Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. Shaykh al-Islam Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim Ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani rahimahullah single-handedly took it upon himself, and he went after them. Oh yeah, he did. And they went after him. Sah? They made him spend a good time in prison, and he made them spend a good time in prisons in their heads. He refuted all the figureheads, starting from their Shaykh Fakhruddin al-Razi. He wrote a masterpiece on Fakhruddin al-Razi, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. He dealt with Abi Hamid al-Ghazali rahimahullah. He debunked his arguments and his beliefs. He went after Abu Bakr al-Baqilani and the mistakes that he fell into. He went after Abu Ma'ali al-Juwayni. He dealt with his issues, rahimahullah ta'ala. And from that day onwards, I don't know anybody who embraced Salafiyah. I don't know anybody who embraced Aqeedatu Ahli Sunnati wal Jama'ah that came after that man that did not benefit from his works. Everybody. Are we all together? Every single person who came after him, he was an ocean. So everybody had their cup, and they took from his ocean a cup and said, this is how much I need. Some people, their cup was big, so they took a lot. Some people, their cups are small, so they only took some of his works and benefited from it. Are we all together, brothers? Whether you like it or not, brothers and sisters, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah is a figure in Islam. You cannot deny his existence. What I mean by his existence, not that he lived and he died. I mean the mark he left in history. He left a dent in history. That not only the Muslims recognized it, but even the non-Muslims, the academics, the Orientalists, they acknowledged it. I remember in university, my university was opposite to SOAS. Anyone here know SOAS? Okay, SOAS it's the biggest Orientalist university in the West. So I used to go to a university right opposite to it. So Salah time would come in, the brothers from SOAS and I would all pray together. So I used to go to the SOAS department, I used to meet the Arabic teachers there, I would talk with them, converse with them. And they used to say to me, Abdurahman, non-Muslims, we are really interested in the works of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. We're interested in this man. A lot of his works are translated. So we read, but there are things of his that is not translated in the English language. Are you guys never planning to translate these things for us? Are we all together? Are you ever never planning to go that direction and translate his works and teach us it? Are we all together, brothers? I think in my schedule, Are we going to talk about the life of Ibn Taymiyyah?
Yes.
Okay. Before I finish, inshallah. Ibn Taymiyyah, when he came, every scholar that you today can possibly think of to be from the ulama of al-Islam, all of them, whether it be from the scholars of Yemen, like Muhammad ibn Ali Shawkani, al-Imam Amir al-San'ani, you name them, or it be from the scholars of Iraq, like Mahmoud Shukri al-Alusi, rahimahullah, and whether it be from the scholars of Sham, whether it be Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah and Jamaluddin al-Qasimi rahimahullah, or it be from the scholars of what? Egypt, like Muhammad Khalil al-Harras, and you name them, and all the other scholars. Or it be from the scholars of Saudi Arabia, whether it be Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and his grandchildren, every one of them is the product of who? So why? Why Ibn Taymiyyah? Ibn Taymiyyah became the person who really he swallowed the Salaf and the views of the Salaf and the reality of what the Salaf meant by their statements. He swallowed it. He swallowed everything. Rahimahullah. وَلِذَلِكَ it's very hard for somebody who came after Ibn Taymiyyah to read the Salaf, except they need to look at what Ibn Taymiyyah brought on the kalam of the Salaf. Because he will not just bring you one qawl. Ibn Taymiyyah will explain another view of the Salaf, and another view of theirs, and another view of theirs. We're talking about 3 golden generation. It will reference all of them just for that one verse, or that one issue, whether it be. I'm going to conclude with this last final point. There are 5 things that finally became the Aqeedah books focused on. Books of Aqeedah that we started to read. And the reason why these books of Aqeedah was written was because all of those groups that deviated, now Ahlul Sunnah wanted to say, you know what? We need to be distinct. We need to be separated from all of those deviated groups. This is the issues that these Ahlul Sunnah believe, and these deviated groups, they go wrong on. And it goes back to 5 issues. Number 1 is the issue related to the companions. Issues related to what? The Sahabas. The second one is, so the first one was what? As-Sahaba. The second issue is Masailul Asma'i wa Sifat, Allah's names and what? Attributes. Deviation happened. Many groups became deviated in that issue. Are we all together, brothers? The third is what? Masailul Asma'i wal Ahkam. Issues of Masail al-Ahkam is what? Takfiran. And
about the Quran created or creation? Call of Allah. Saying of Allah.
if that literally goes back to al-asma' wa sifat. It's mas'alatul kalam. Is it sifa dhatiyya? Is it sifa fi'liyya? Al-kalam al-nafsi. Bab al-asma' wa sifat enters. Let's repeat it one more time. Number one, مسائل الصحابة. هي الأسماء والصفات. هي الأسماء والأحكام. الوعد والوعيد. Yeah. Terms is الأسماء والأحكام. الوعد والوعيد. What am I missing? إيمان is in الأسماء والأحكام. Yeah. مسائل القضاء والقدر. جزاك الله خيرا. مسائل القدر. The issues related to qadar. Those 5 issues, they became what? They became
Foundation of Aqidah books.
the kutub al-i'tiqad revolve around those 5. They revolve around what? Those 5. Any kitab al-aqidah you open, whether it be Abu Qasim Hibatullah al-Lalakai's kitab, Sharh Aqidat Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, whether it be kitab, the Aqidah book written by Abu Qasim al-Taymi, Al-Hujjah fi Bayan al-Mahajjah, whether it be the kitab, Sharh al-Sunnah al-Imam al-Muzani, Sharh al-Sunnah by al-Imam al-Barbahari, whether it be I'tiqad A'immat al-Hadith by Abu Bakr al-Ismaili, Aqidat al-Salaf wa Ashab al-Hadith by al-Imam Abu Uthman al-Sabuni, and whether it be kitab al-Sunnah by Harb al-Kirmani, kitab al-Sunnah by Abdullah ibn Imam Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Hanbal, whether it be kitab al-Aqidah in al-Tahawiyah, al-Wasitiyah, al-Hamawiyah, al-Tadmuriyah, every kutub al-i'tiqad, Aqidat al-Raziyain by Abu Zur'at al-Razi and Abu Hatim al-Razi, every book of Aqidah you read, it goes back to those 5. Those 5 became where the dispute and argumentations went back to. In the issues of Aqidah, it goes back to those 5. Anything you bring up now, I can show you it's one of those 5. Are we all together? And who mentioned that these are 5? Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah. He mentions in his kitab Mujmal al-I'tiqadi Ahli Sunnati wal Jama'ah. I finished my topic today, inshallah ta'ala. I hope it was an overload of information. I tried to make it as brief and as summarized as possible. And I ask Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala that Allah allows us to live upon the love of the Sunnah, and that Allah takes our life and we are upon the Sunnah. If I in any way, shape or form offended anybody whilst talking, then I apologize. And I also ask Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala to forgive me for any mistakes or shortcoming.